Since I first started making this video, that video has got 671,000 views. Now I know Richard's interesting, but that's not why they're watching that. They're watching that because... Hey, my name's Joe and welcome to this video, and we're going to be looking at YouTube's Most Psychotic Vegan. We're going to cover why the most popular YouTubers are infatuated with the most strangest vegans. We're going to take a look at veganism as an evolution of consciousness and why that's causing this tussle between ideas. We're also going to talk about what is it about vegans that eventually shines through to thwart all of these videos. And stay tuned to the end because you're going to find out the real reason why these videos are so popular. So Vegan Gains is a YouTuber that came on the scene in 2015 at the height of vegan YouTube, about the same time I was making vlogs. So someone's just made a video about him called Turkey Tom, and it's not gone unnoticed that he released it on Thanksgiving, and it's titled YouTube's Most Psychotic Vegan. And that's what caught my attention. Why is it called that? The Most Psychotic Vegan. Let's take a look.
My name is Richard, last name Burgess.
I'm a sadist. I enjoy hurting people.
My YouTube channel's Vegan Gains. I'm a vegan animal rights activist.
The only use I can see getting out of you is cutting your fucking skin off and turning you into my new fucking wall.
And that's what most of my content centers around, but I also do health and fitness and political stuff and social issues.
So the first thing I want to say is Turkey Tom is crushing it. This man has millions of views. And I think that's partly because he's a great storyteller. The composition that you just watched is so clever because it pits Vegan Gains being this kind of mild-mannered person being interviewed versus someone who appears to be unhinged, and they're framed together under this umbrella of YouTube's Most Psychotic Vegan. Brilliant. But all he's really doing here is showing someone having an interview and then contrasting their art. That's basically what it is with their interview. And then when you put it under any subtext, it makes it seem what you want it to seem. It's called framing. Here's an example.
Being a successful artist, like my studio's on 4 floors.
This is My Bed by Tracy Emin. It's really her bed.
You have to also have your head screwed on and be together.
Loose change, a candle, a condom, nail scissors, a barbecue sauce pack from a fast food restaurant, and other assorted rubbish.
You see what I mean? Now, Tracy Emin is an artist, and she's also a person, and she's got a history of some kind of mental issues, which most people have. Well, let's say many people have, and Vegan Gains has admitted that he has. And anyone who does any creative work, you know that bits of your psyche from your past, good and bad, finds its way into your work. But nobody's going around putting together compositions like this of Tracy Emin because people generally don't hate artists. They might think they're a bit odd, they might not really prefer them, but they don't actively hate them. And that's the real issue here. Tom even says so.
It's hard to find a group more universally mocked than vegans. If you look almost anywhere on social media, you'll probably come across some sort of meme or video poking fun at them.
And it's true, some of the things that vegans do look a bit odd. Take a look at this protest.
How do vegans come up with such stupid ways to protest? Yesterday, a group of vegans put themselves into these concrete shoes and stood outside Starbucks holding up a sign because they're tired of the 50-cent upcharge on soy milk.
And on the surface level, it does look a little bit odd. But with most things with veganism, when you start to look at the reasons why, it starts to make a bit of sense.
Protester Kenneth Montville says Starbucks upcharges customers for making better environmental decisions.
The fact is, it's hard to come across as rational when everything that you do is put through a frame to make it seem something that it's not. They're not protesting that they personally have to pay 50 cents on the milk. They're protesting that Starbucks is saying that they support the environment at the same time they're charging people for making healthy, more beneficial choices. That's what's going on here. And with that respect, it's quite rational. Although I wouldn't put my feet in concrete. But hey, people want to protest, they do what they're going to do. It doesn't mean they're psychotic though.
Many people see them as pretentious overreactors to a relatively trivial issue.
And that is the central challenge of all vegans who want to speak up. The people that you're speaking up to think it's a trivial issue. And it's only when people start to realize how much of an issue this is for the animals and for the planet they start to change their tone. But as it stands right now, particularly in this video, this is being treated as a trivial issue, and that makes anybody who protests look psychotic.
Leave Benny alone! Please!
So that one did the rounds way back when, and it got such a reaction because it was a very, very strong emotive cry over something which was considered very trivial, the discussions about Britney Spears. It turned out the whole thing was a joke anyway. But the point is that that's what vegans face. When vegans are upset about things happening to animals, they're laughed at and considered hysterical or psychotic because other people just don't understand how serious the issues are. And that's why Vegan Gains outbursts garnered so much attention, because they seem overreacting to what people say is a trivial matter. Now let's be clear here. Vegan Gains says some crazy stuff, and he does come across as being a little bit unhinged. But my point is that if it wasn't about veganism, they would let it slide. But it's because it's about veganism that they want to highlight as much as possible that people at the forefront of veganism are in some way psychotic.
Richard has gained quite a reputation over the years for his unwavering dedication to promoting a vegan lifestyle. His journey into the world of veganism began back in 2015, and since then, he's gone to great lengths to showcase the advantages of this dietary choice, albeit sometimes employing rather unconventional methods.
I fucking hate children. They literally make me sick.
Now, the bit about babies was probably his most controversial take, and that went viral. But when you look into it, there are videos of people actually seriously talking about how much they hate babies.
I hate babies. I hate babies. I can't stand to be around them. I can't stand them to be in like the same area I am in. Babies suck.
And none of those have had the same impact. Why? Because they're not vegan. So there's no reason to use that as a way to undermine their character. I don't understand this hatred of babies, or even the desire to want to voice that if you do, but it happens, and it's got nothing to do to whether or not veganism is a valid argument or lifestyle. And with Richard, he's got quite a cynical, abrasive view on life. It's not psychotic, but it is very entertaining, and I just found this video here called 10 Minutes of Vegan Gains Losing It on an ex-vegan. And, you know, I don't lose it on ex-vegans, but let's see what Richard has got to say.
Doesn't even fucking lift. He has the body of a 12-year-old lesbian. Where am I getting my nutrition, jackass?
You can't say stuff like that. It's terrible.
My fucking shoulders are bigger than your fucking head. Like, really? Can somebody please teach me how to fucking eat like an adult? You could have fucking asked somebody in the fucking community, and then here you make some bitchy, dumb, whiny ass post. I don't know how to eat food. Someone please teach me how to eat.
He's just making the point that if you're if you're struggling with a vegan diet, seek support. Don't come out and make some comment about how I couldn't get the right calories and nutrient balance. This is what it all says here. He's like, literally, get support. And he does it in a funny way. And does it make him look a bit psychotic? By the social definition of the word, it does a bit.
From laughing at his grandfather dying of a heart attack, to getting into actual real-life confrontations with other vegan YouTubers, supposedly making fun of a kid who was dying of cancer, and even having short feuds with massive creators like Leafy, Grade A Under A, Onision, and Moist Critical, it's fair to say he's an abrasive personality.
Did you see Andrew Tate is claiming to have lung cancer now? Hopefully.
And that's where I think the anti-vegan, as in anti-vegans, argument takes hold, is when you're laughing at people who are dying or unwell and then saying or justifying it because you haven't followed a vegan diet, you're now sick, so I have a right to laugh at you. I think that is not how veganism is going to grow. I don't support that at all. I think it's a terrible thing to do. All the other things you can kind of pass off as jokes and character and looking to go viral and get a message across, but directly laughing at people going through the most traumatic human experience that we can go through, which is facing our own death, to me is just off the cards no matter what the reason is. So with that, I completely stand by that. And as I said, Vegan Gains has never been the most agreeable person in the vegan movement. But my point is that is who the focus of this video is on. That's the point I'm making. They haven't chosen a vegan who's absolutely amazing communicator in terms of, like, you know, the way that they talk about their own veganism. They're not talking about people dying or laughing at people dying or saying I hate babies. They're giving very solid arguments for the vegan lifestyle, and they're getting nowhere near as much attention as the vegans that are controversial. Why? Because it suits the narrative that vegans are psychotic, hysterical, unhinged, because it is by attacking the basis of the vegan character that you can try to flip the argument. And that is why that video is so popular, because vegans being psychotic means that carnists are not. Let me explain with a little bit of animation. So here we are on our little planet, and it's finite and there's nowhere else to go. So we need a system that works. What we currently have is a system that is managed by what we call carnists, and they indulge in eating animals, using the environment to feed those animals, not having such a conscious approach to the care of those animals as well. Then along comes a group called vegans, and they're looking at living a life where you have a much more compassionate approach, a much more holistic approach, eating plant-based foods that are grown on the planet in alignment as best as possible with the ecosystems, causing as little harm to animals as is possible, although it is unavoidable, and just caring for the planet in a more compassionate and sustainable way. This sets up what is called a battle of consciousness. So that's what's going on here, is the evolution of consciousness. Now, it will succeed eventually, but when these new ideas are introduced, they cause tension, and it's about which arguments have a stronger pull on the population as a whole over a longer period of time. We've seen this in the past with the sun and the earth, which is the center of the universe. We've also seen it with voting for all genders, and we've also seen it with equal rights for all races. Yes, there's tension, but ultimately the whole conscious evolution of all beings moves in a positive direction, and these new ideas are embraced. So the current battle for consciousness, one of them, there's many, but one of them is veganism versus carnism, and that's what we're seeing here. So ideas are introduced. New ideas by vegans are brought into the environment, and then the carnists respond with traditional ideas, what we've already been doing. And then you have new ideas from veganisms about how we can make this work, and the carnists have money and established economy, and they believe that that is why we should leave things as they are. And the vegans turn to science, which provides a lot of evidence, but so does carnism, using some of those bucks, I imagine. And then we look at compassion, which is one of the strongest arguments for veganism. It's very hard to refute the compassion argument. Very, very hard. The best that the carnists have is taste. It's a very weak argument, but that's the one they turn to most often. So in this battle, the information arguments cancel each other out. The new information and the old money, they cancel each other out. The science arguments cancel each other out. And all you're really left with is compassion versus taste. That's a bit of a checkmate for carnism. So the response changed the rules. Rather than comparing veganism versus carnism, let's compare psychotic versus sane. And because we've changed the rules from psychotic versus sane, we no longer need to look at compassion versus taste. It's taken off the table, literally. And then, if we're looking at psychotic versus sane, we don't have to look at the planet or the environment. Similarly, we don't have to look at the suffering of the animals or the food. And come to think of it, we don't even have to look at the carnists or the sane. And what we're left with is those psychotic vegans. And not only that, let's find the most psychotic vegans and make them the benchmark. And who are the most psychotic vegans? Well, I'm sure you recognize these two. And this is how the sane win on a tiny planet, polluting it to smithereens, causing great suffering to billions of animals every year, damaging their health, the ecosystem. They can eat all the bacon and sausages that they like, and we carry on, yay for us, because vegans are psychotic. But here's the thing, it doesn't always work, because once you start getting up close to vegans, their true nature, the compassion, the reason why they do this starts to come out. Not with all, but with the majority. And that's what you start to see. Take a look at this video as an example.
Eat your vegetables! How dare you take an animal who never did a single thing wrong to you and chop them up into pieces? Leave animals the f*** alone. Why?
This is the vegan teacher, aka Miss Katie, aka self-proclaimed animal rights activist. She is a 58-year-old woman from Montreal and happens to be probably the most hated woman on the internet.
That's a video called 24 Hours with That Vegan Teacher. And like most of these vegans are psychotic type videos, the creators don't necessarily deliberately go out to undermine the character of these vegans. But that is what the subtext is. That's what my point. And the problem with it is, as you get close to these vegans, their humanity starts to come forward and the whole narrative starts to change.
I think if you want to make the argument that vegans are weak and malnourished, you can't really do that with her because I couldn't catch up. One of them was her crying to footage of some cows drowning in California.
They're stuck there.
When you see people who are like the opposite of an activist making videos against you, like what do you have to say to them, I guess?
Because they created like a whole generation of bullies, people who are vegan phobic, who think it's okay to pick on animal rights activists. And so many teenagers who were vegan have now retreated and are staying silent because they're afraid.
How do I get people to watch the footage of the animals?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do to get people to click away.
That's the main challenge that I have.
I think the best way I could describe her is the same way you would describe anyone that's on the internet, basically. You have their actual self, and then you have their online self, what they present online, which is a very much exaggerated version of themselves.
And I think this guy did a really great job of just letting the vegan teacher be the vegan teacher. There were some cringe moments, which I'm not going to show in this video, but generally it did allow her to really show her character, the genuine character, what drives her desire to be of benefit to animals. And that came across in the comments. Take a look. She actually seems a really nice person when she's not obsessing over veganism. She actually seems to have a very fun, bubbly personality when she's not talking about veganism. If it weren't for her aggressiveness and how offensive she is to people, she would be the coolest grandma ever. When she's not obsessed about veganism, she's just like a nice grandma. She seems crazy online, but she seems like a nice lady. Man, she actually seems so fun and sweet. If she wasn't so determined making everyone vegan, she would be loved on the internet. The vegan teacher seems actually kind of nice and funny. I mean, it speaks for itself, right? Her true nature shines through her online persona. And even though nobody likes the message when they're not vegan because it's abrasive to their current level of consciousness, it still shines through. It still shines through. And you know what? This video has got 11 million views. I reckon in the time that video got 11 million views, I think it outpaced every other vegan video on YouTube combined. And in Tom's video on Richard, they also had some heart-to-heart, and a lot of real genuine information was shared.
Richard Burgess was born in 1991 in Canada. These formative years were marred by an atmosphere that he himself describes as somewhat hostile.
Like, it's a pretty hostile environment growing up. Had a lot of pressure on me, and if I just didn't play well, I was kind of shamed and humiliated by my parents.
During the formative years of his life, Richard would start attending school and immediately stood out from your typical kid. He often characterizes himself as an autistic kid. He couldn't escape frequent clashes with other students and teachers.
I don't care. I'd rather just generally not be around too many people or associate with them or get to know them.
His decision to fully go vegan, he claims, was because of two main events. One of them was a near-death experience.
And I remember actually feeling my heart slow down and then leaving my body. And then I became the universe. It was this really weird out-of-body experience. I think that made me just a little more empathic because I felt like I just became everything.
Why do you feel this way about animals? Why do you feel like they deserve so much empathy?
Yeah, I don't like injustice. I don't like it when weaker people or beings are kind of picked on. I'm especially sympathetic to animals because they have no way of even fighting back. Yeah. It's not a battle they can win.
If nothing else, I can definitely say with a clear conscience that Richard is an exceedingly honest person. Whether you think his honest self is a nut job, or he's funny, or you find him completely detestable, or somewhere in between, is up to you. But bottom line, who he is on camera is for the most part who he was off of it. I had a lot of preconceived notions of vegan gains when I went into this video. I thought that he was a crazed vegan who said a lot of wild stuff online for attention. And that was somewhat true. But in person, what I found was a calm and collected guy with a genuine passion for what he sees as animal rights. And honestly, I would consider Richard to be a friend now that it's all said and done.
Now, I also think Tom did a great job at letting Richard be Richard. And Richard is a much darker character than the vegan teacher. And that comes across in the comments. While it doesn't attract the same kind of warmth as the comments as that vegan teacher, but he's still humanized. There's something so funny and interesting about seeing someone that is typically so volatile and troublesome act so chill and open to casual conversation. But then they say, this guy is terrifying and definitely mentally not all there. But also, I really appreciate him being open about the possibility of sociopathy. I generally think this is one of your best videos yet, Tom. The in-person segments really humanized Richard. And also the title gets called out a little bit here. There's something so funny about sitting down with someone and having a real heart-to-heart conversation about veganism and animal rights and then naming the video YouTube's Most Psychotic Vegan. And that's what I'm talking about. The evolution of consciousness is so powerful that all of these examples of vegans and the vegan story itself rises through even as people are pulled apart or discredited or challenged in some way. And that brings me on to my final point. What does it mean to be psychotic? So I'm against the internet trend of using mental health terminology to describe everyday situations and people's characteristics. It happens with ADHD, it happens with narcissism, and it's happening here with the use of the word psychotic. But we're not going to talk about that now. Just for the purposes of this video, let's just look at what psychosis means in this context. So psychosis actually means to lose touch with reality. And it also means to not understand what's real and unreal. And this is what the irony is that if anybody could be described as losing touch with reality, it's people eating meat and refusing to attribute their own actions to the harm of animals. It's people eating meat and saying no one's being hurt, nothing's being hurt, there is no harm here, there's no problem here, it's completely okay. Or not understanding what's real, that suffering of animals is real and it's really happening with every bite. So if anybody was to misuse the word psychotic, it could easily be people who eat a vegan diet saying the entire human food system is completely psychotic in that it causes harm without empathy. It causes harm disconnected from the reality of the suffering, and it refuses to look at what's real. I'm not going to call anybody psychotic who eats animals. I'm just saying, in the context of this video, then I think it's the case of the kettle calling the pot black.
This was put on my windshield by some mean person.
You enjoy hurting animals?
I love it.
Does it give you great pleasure?
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Is it because the animals can't fight back and defenseless? Is that what makes it so good?
Oh, yeah.
Are you against animal abuse?
I am. I reckon if you kill chickens and cows nicely, then they should be able to be eaten, you know?
Okay, can you explain to me how you nicely kill someone? A shot?
Yeah.
Gun?
To make them go to sleep.
Bang!
40 seconds!
You look hungry.
Because of that.
You seem pretty upset when I went over there.
I think that's way more accurate in terms of the definition of psychotic in the context of this video. You've got people leaving dead animal parts on the windscreen of that vegan teacher. You've got a couple of people admitting how much they enjoy the suffering inflicted when they're eating the animal parts. And then you've got people openly discussing nice ways to kill beings and advocating for them to be shot in the head as one of the options. And then you've got a group of people who are trying to give these pigs a few bits of water in the last hours of their life, and someone showing up eating hot dogs. And that's causing a lot of distress. I think that's way more psychotic than anything I've seen in any of the videos I've watched about vegans, by far. Because the old belief systems are so ingrained that they say things like this.
I think the hardest thing to figure out was, how do you tell someone that in the very battle that they think they're fighting, they are the enemy? And well, you can't.
He's right. But he's talking about himself. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. And this is why we just have to let the evolution of consciousness take its course. Now, it's a whole other video, but that's essentially what vegan activism is. That's what all activism is. The accelerated evolution of consciousness. We saw it with the Earth being the epicenter of the solar system and realizing it's the sun. We saw it with voting rights for all genders, and we saw it with equal rights for all races. None of these things are perfect. There's still issues in the world, but generally the agreement is landing on the right side of the moral argument, and that will happen with veganism. And that's why I love these videos, because they set out to highlight a very unusual or strange vegan. They get millions of views because of that very reason, but the vegan argument isn't strange. It's completely rational. So no matter how strange the vegan is telling it, the message that's being shared is completely rational, and it slowly over time breaks down people's conditioning. So they start to see the compassion versus taste argument is irrefutable. And that's what I think these videos do. They are an unintended way of sharing the compassion that lies at the heart of veganism. Because when you peel back the layers, even the most so-called psychotic vegans, what underlies their position is compassion. If you've got different opinions, let me know in the comments, share your views. I respect everyone that's been featured in this video. Some of these video makers are absolutely outstanding, and I think that they've had this really mature approach. It already shows the evolution of consciousness, the fact that they're going out there to meet these vegans and actually talking to them and giving them space to share their views. So I've really enjoyed making this video. I really enjoyed watching the videos. It's absolutely fantastic, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. And if you did, please like and share it with anyone you think may be interested, and I'll see you in the next one.